Hello, and welcome to another episode of Greg in Your Ear, the show where I record raw footage and speak over it while trying not to wake a sleeping baby. It's all the innovation that YouTube will allow. Let's get right into it. So today, there's a couple of things that I could talk about. It's been a little while since the last Greg in Your Ear. It's been a busy holiday month. I've moved to a new home, and the process of doing this has been pretty chaotic. You know, we've had to get new floors put in and everything because the old place had carpets from like 30 years ago, and the previous owners had dogs and cats, and you could smell like there was cat pee in the carpet and everything like that. So it was pretty difficult I have an allergy to cats, so it was difficult to live with. Had to tear the carpet out, and it's been a lot of work. We've had to redo the carpet in a couple of places. In other news, Mass Builder updated. They're in early access, and so I'm just playing the game as new things come out, and they made some changes. The game still feels relatively the same as it was. They made you tankier, I think, is what they did. Although it's hard to tell because as a result of playing the game a lot, I had a lot of points left over. So as soon as they released the new update with like, oh, and here's some new upgrades, I just like kind of maxed out my upgrades. Like I could still get a few more things. I was spending a lot of my cash on unlocking parts, and unfortunately I still don't have a bunch of the parts I really wanted. There's so many junky little like knee joints and foot, like ankle. You can equip this special ankle, and so you unlock all the stupid little like ankle parts before you get any of the main like face plates and chest plates, the really obvious macro scale things that make up the silhouette of your robot. So kind of a little frustrated by that, but they've got like this Tallgeese design that I really want, and then at some point I'll get in this game and play it long enough to unlock the dang parts I want, but who knows when I'll find the time for that, because I've started making my own game. That's right. The situation with that, there's a lot to talk about with this, but I'm going to be doing maybe dev blogs as I go on. To a certain limited extent, I don't know how much I can do, because sooner or later I'll just start working on like the game part of the game, and it would be just spoiling the game to be like, so here's the part of the story where you do this and this, because then you don't even have to, you've just seen it all. Although I guess that's what YouTube's really all about. But anyway, though, I learned some basic programming stuff in high school. My high school had a class in Java, and turns out Unity, which is the engine that I'm using, programs in C#, which is like Microsoft's sort of flippant proprietary response to Java. They wanted to use Java for stuff, and then I think Java didn't totally cooperate with them because, they're a ruthless corporation that will adopt, expand, and destroy, and so no one should ever play nice with Microsoft. So Microsoft had to make their own proprietary software, and C# functions very similarly to Java, so I was really fortunate in that regard. My choice. I also looked into, I think it was a Game Maker. Like, I looked into what Toby Fox used to make his RPG, because all I wanted to make was an RPG. And I was like, well, what did he do? He looked like he had a lot of options, because he had a, that's a very non-traditional sort of layout, which means that he was able to do a fair amount of programming and implement things in a way that suited his needs. So I looked into that, and then immediately just turned my nose up at it, because all the tutorials were YouTube videos. And the trouble with that is that YouTube being what it is, it's always going to direct you to the video with the most watch minutes, which often means the least efficient video. So I hated that. Unity had a lot of written tutorials. Like, you can look online and there's all types of, you can just like quickly read for answers, Control F, find keywords that you're looking for. So I got myself a book on C# and I go into that whenever I like need to know how to do something. Like I know things that programming can do. I just sometimes need to know how C# does it, and so I flip to that book and I look it up, and I've probably been getting into more advanced things than my high school class ever taught me, but that's how it is. Real life always, you kind of work for the demands of your actual projects. School just sort of like has a, it's not always real world applicable. So, that's been coming along. I'm almost done with the battle menu, because like I say, it's an RPG. The whole battle system is pretty straightforward. I'm not like breaking any boundaries or any walls on that. I don't have like I like RPG mechanic. I do a lot of role playing and stuff like that, so I'm not one of these people who thinks that the wheel needs to be reinvented. What Undertale did was pretty fun, and a lot of people like that, but it's not really in my best interest to just be trying to rip off someone else's success. That novelty oftentimes only works once. So I enjoy RPG mechanics. I don't see any reason to fix them. I'm gonna use them. It's gonna be pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You're gonna get like 3 characters per battle, and every character has one special ability that does something a little unique. Nothing too wild, like armor piercing, or it's a big explosion, or that type of thing. And that's the plan for the mechanics. And then otherwise, the real appeal of the RPG for me is that it's more about the writing and the characters and everything. So but before I get into the writing and the characters, I have to develop all my own battle systems, my own UIs. It's not like RPG Maker where that's already previously done. But I'm getting there. I'm just about at a point where I can implement virtually any kind of thing I want. I have some fun ideas for the first boss, and I know what I want to do for like the tutorial level. The exact details of how I want the game to play out, I'm not really sure. Originally, I was going to have you like meet different characters as the game progressed, but as I thought about it, if you had a favorite character and you meet him at the end of the game, he's useless, because then you only use him for like the very last chapter of the game, and I've been trying to think about ways to get around that. So my original plan is getting like reshuffled as I work on this thing and kind of figure out the scope of what it is I want to do, this and that. So it's been interesting. I'm not sure exactly what type of thing people want to see in the dev blogs. Most of it right now is just about coding and me learning to code, me learning to understand Unity's peculiarities, which might be too technical for some people. I'm sure there are people who will enjoy it. People are really into coding and stuff like that. Anyway, I just want to point out they added a new boss. There's actually 2 new levels for Mass Builder, and one of them has this giant rhinoceros boss, or Triceratops rather, which I thought was pretty rad. The music for this is pretty intense. It's like heavy metal, so I just never try not to keep game sounds because they tend to get caught by Content ID. But anyway, this was pretty rad. A little underwhelmed by the update, but hey, what can I say? Not totally underwhelmed, just a little underwhelmed. But they had some drawbacks. They were saying, speaking of game development, they were talking about doing their own thing. And they were like, yeah, we're going to release early November. And then they had the thing, and they were like, all right, sorry, so it's going to be late. And it was kind of like, yeah, I mean, no duh. That's, you predict these things, but every single project, no matter how big or small, you always plan for it to be like, I'll get it on Thursday, and then it winds up done, the following Tuesday or whatever. So if they'd delayed on until like January, I wouldn't have been terribly surprised, just so long as the results were good. If you get too much in that deadline crunch mindset, you can wind up with a worse product. But of course, if they'd released like never and just spent all their time fiddling with like really stupid things, then that too. This is something I see a lot in mods and whatnot. I've been keeping up with Yandere Simulator a lot more recently, because now that I'm starting to use Unity, it's a lot easier for me to kind of look at what's going on with that game and understand why it's never gonna release. In a nutshell, one of the things that that Yandere Sim is doing that's really strange is the guy doing it. A lot of people say he doesn't really know how to program anything, and it's kind of like it's hard to say without looking at his code what exactly he's doing, but he apparently just has the same code crammed into like every student in the game. If you're not familiar with Yandere Simulator, it was something like PewDiePie played it and therefore made it really popular. But you're just playing as like a high school girl, and then she kills her friends, more or less, because she's in love with some other schoolboy. So anyway, he got really famous because PewDiePie played the game, and then I think Markiplier played it. And Markiplier has played it since. It's just that it's kind of funny. He does it sort of grudgingly. Like, Markiplier is one of these guys, I get a kick out of him. I get the feeling Markiplier really wants to do something besides YouTube, but he's just stuck doing YouTube. It's like YouTube is a trap. Like, you don't really get out of it. There are some people who do, but then they don't succeed. So it's just such a strange platform. But anyway, the thing I was gonna say is that he's Kind of Fallen Unity has a lot of tricks that you can use that kind of make shortcuts possible, but if you use the shortcuts and you're not judicious with them, it can make your game really bloaty and everything. And then he's also using a lot of like pre-built assets, which is strange. I don't understand why you would do that, because basically if you lack the resources to make your own assets, there's only so much you can do, because Unity kind of does everything through objects. So like the things you see on screen are what is operating the game. And if you can't make your own, then you're gonna have a really hard time necessarily doing what you want. Like for example, I've got some global objects in my game, and I'm just calling them the elves. The Watchful Elf is gonna track player data, and then like the Special Forces Elf tracks like combat data, and you call these functions, and they sort of run the battle system, this and that. And you don't actually have to have them be characters, but I went and I drew portraits for them, humanize the things, characterize them, and then maybe I'll do something like some kind of Easter egg thing with them down the line. Anyway, though, this footage is over, so I guess that'll be it. We can keep going. We'll bring up the Radio Skyline footage. Why the heck not? I got more stuff I want to talk about. So yeah, I've said in the past, Greg in Your Ear is like one of these things. Like I look at it as less than any of my other projects, and that's because it's far simpler. I know that some of you guys enjoy watching it, but on the whole, a lot of times what I see with YouTube channels is that they have content that they make, and that's what people really like. That's what kind of produces their audience, and then they sort of reach that critical mass point where they can just produce anything, and it doesn't matter. And gradually they start to just release a lot of the easy stuff. Like for example, Greg in Your Ear is my easy stuff, and they produce a lot of it. So like most of their videos just become the easy stuff because they find that to YouTube's promotional algorithm, it doesn't matter what they make, just so long as it has watch minutes. And it's just as profitable to make garbage as it is to make quality content. So just as a rule, I mean, even at my scale, if 1,000 of you guys watch Radio Skyline, it's worth the same money in promotion as far as YouTube is concerned as if 1,000 of you watch Greg in Your Ear. So the incentive is actually to do tons of Greg in Your Ear, because I could do this every single day, whereas Radio Skyline takes writing, and then sometimes I don't like the script, I rewrite the script and everything. But that just sort of soulless, vapid kind of stuff, it's just not what I want to do. It's not why I got into entertainment at all. I appreciate that you guys do like Greg in Your Ear, but it's not what I started doing YouTube content for. Speaking of Radio Skyline, you might notice that there's some extra echo in the latest episode. That's because we haven't moved everything in quite yet. We've also got a lot of hardwood floor, so sound just bounces off the walls and everywhere. It might even be bad in this video. I've got like some filters set up and everything like that to make it better for the recording, but I don't know how good of a job it's doing. Probably not great, to be honest. Yeah. But anyway, though, I was going to talk about... So Yandere Simulator. What I think went wrong with him was that he wrote his script for all of his little characters, and it's just a single script. And then what you can do is Unity will let you drag and drop a script into each object in the game, right? So like I have an object called the Special Forces Elf, and whenever I want to do a special attack, I call the Special Forces Elf, and then he tells me what the attack is. And this is useful because now I can reuse special attacks. So like one monster will have a special attack, and it's just like an armor-piercing attack, whatever. And then they have stats for that in their own personal little block, but whenever I want to do that armor-piercing attack, I just call that special attack. So players get one special abilities, but the monsters could have like dozens of them. I can get crazy with it if I want to. I just have to define it and then call the Special Forces Elf. So the Special Forces Elf, he's his own little object. But if I wanted, I could, instead of programming everything into the Special Forces Elf, I could program all the special attacks into the monsters in general, and then drag and drop that script into all the monsters. See? And this is, I think, what Yandere Dev has done, is it looks like he's programmed every action that every character on screen can take, and he's dragged the script into every character. So they're all executing the script, and all of them are asking, like, am I a student? Am I a teacher? Am I in the fight club? Am I a girl? Am I a boy? Am I senpai? Am I the player character? And so like every frame, they're asking themselves this. And there are ways that you could mitigate that. Like you could use a function that would like wait and then ask those questions every like 10 seconds. Because a lot of times, especially because in Yandere Simulator, it's a 3D game and like the characters are all walking from point A to point B, when they're walking, they don't really need to update and ask themselves all those questions. but I think that they do, based on what I've read. I think most people get a hold of his code through decompiling, though, and so I don't really know what that means as far as the process goes. It's maybe a flawed interpretation of what he's doing, but it's just fascinating because he makes a lot of money, and he's been really successful without ever having really properly released a game. He just kind of teases things and then adds like really small, easy to implement features. And I see this also with like mod developers and stuff like that. Like I play Terraria, and there's this mod called Calamity in Terraria. And for years now, this guy keeps talking about like, oh, I'm going to introduce the big super final boss soon, you know, any day now, any week, any month, any year. And then he keeps kind of like adding things. Like he's like, oh, I got this new biome. I added this new weapon. You know, Total Biscuit died, so I added a special weapon that just like plows through all the bosses. And it's my special developer weapon. And it's kind of like, the more he does this, the longer he drags things out and doesn't really accomplish the goals that people are asking for, the more you start to realize that maybe he doesn't know how to do the things that he's promising. And sometimes you find, like, for example, one of his bosses, that he's got a boss in this mod called Cryogen, which is like it's like a floating crystal-y guy that does these special attacks. And that boss has barely changed over the span of like multiple years. And I think that one's a fun boss. There's a couple of other bosses in that mod that are fun, and then there are some that are really frustrating. And the really frustrating ones change a lot. Like they just get overtuned and tweaked, and those are the ones like every single game update. It's like I changed the Devourer of Gods. You know, that's the one that you see all the time. I updated him, I made him different, I added more projectiles, I added another annoying mechanic. You know, he's got 2 phases to his life now. You know, every single update is just tweaking this one boss and messing with its stats, and it gets to be like Cryogen, I think, was programmed by someone else, and he almost never touches that one. And so that one has like I've never like opened up that mod and then just be like, man, do I really want to fight Cryogen? It's always like I get to the bosses that he overtunes, and if I can't skip them, it's now like if I play with Calamity, I just stop the playthrough when I get to that. It's like, man, do I really want to like fight these overtuned super bosses, or do I want to just like do something else? So you just watch people add these tiny, like simple, easy, low-hanging details, and that's how you know that they're having trouble implementing the big things that people really want to see. So yeah, I'm all over the place with this Greg in Your Ear. As for my game, like I say, I'll probably do a YouTube video on the main channel talking about some of the development stuff. I don't know how organized I want the video to be. I'm gonna release like playable sort of demos of the game on Patreon, and so you can see like I'm almost done with the battle system. You'll be able to see that. I'll just release things, and when there's a big tutorial, I'll release that and see how it does. But I gotta figure out how to also get people to pick up the game. Like, if I could release it on Steam, I could sell it, I guess. But the trick is you have to get greenlit, and that whole process has changed. Like, I think you have to put money in up front now to even get considered for greenlighting. And then there's no guarantee, I don't believe, that you'll get on the store. Like, I think you need to demonstrate that there's enough interest in your game. And so I have to do all the marketing and everything, and it's still the same trap as everything on the internet today, is that it's all sort of like this walled garden with transparent walls. Like, you can see through the walls, you know, there's all this stuff, but they're weird because the garden is just weeds. You know, it's like all this really low effort crap that nobody really wants. And so you're just in a massive garden of weeds, and you're like trying to plant a beautiful flower, and it's like, and then there's this guy just trying to sell something he made in RPG Maker over the weekend, and you know, he wants a quick buck. You know, YouTube, same way. It's like, man, I'm trying to release these things, and then I'm competing with people who are honestly just uploading content just you know, because. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I want people to play it. You know, if there's no chance of it getting on Steam, then just to get the game out somehow. I just want people to see it. You know, I don't know how I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do like a big drive. Like, you have to show your friends, guys. Whenever you feel like there's enough of this, anything I do, to show to people, and you can not be embarrassed by showing it to people, you have to show them. Like, you personally have to do it, because none of these online algorithms will do it anymore. They don't they don't help people find good content. It's not what it's about. You have to do it personally. You have to do it. I'll show it to as many people as I can, but then I need you guys to show them stuff too. So, yeah, but I got into a bunch of new patrons, though, who are excited about the prospect, and that's really good. That's uplifting and reassuring. It shows that people are interested and invested. So, yeah. Anyway, though, I think that's about all I wanted to say, or about all that I can remember on the spot, with no script and no planning. So, thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.